The problem with Ordinals is that you are creating an arbitrary game which not only interfere but also conflicts with the previous conventional but not arbitrary and very consequential game that you were already playing on the same information. So we were already playing a game that was a game of money, a game of property, with some enforceability due to unknowable private keys or unpredictable block numbers or proof of work thermodynamical characteristics. So there was already a game. It was a very cool game, not an arbitrary game, just half-assed. It was a very intelligent game. And now you're putting your nothing burger on top of conflicting with another game.
Welcome back to the Freedom Footprint Show, the Bitcoin Philosophy Show with Knut Svanholm and me, Luke the Pseudofin. And we're here today with our good friend Giacomo Zucco, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what's going on with ocean mining, everything to do with ordinals, and maybe a few other interesting things, such as his recent trip to El Salvador. We figured this was timely because this is all going down around Christmas time. We're recording this on December 27th, aiming to get this out within a couple of days, I think. And so we're in the Christmas spirit, and we have our good friend Giacomo. So Giacomo, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back. Yes, it's a very good time, so I will be less toxic because I'm still a little bit infused with Christmas spirit. So I will be very kind to everybody.
Yeah, how was the Christmas spirit in El Salvador?
I was still not as an Italian from north of Italy, and now live in Switzerland where everything is cold in December. I was not used to do the typical, Christmas with palms stuff. So I didn't really feel the Christmas. There were some lights, I have to say, but I'm still not ready to spend the actual Christmas day in a tropical land. It's still too weird for me.
Yeah, I love like when they decorate palm trees with Christmas lights. It looks like something else.
Yeah, but but also it's weird because in Italy we have all the nativity scenes everywhere, and for nativity scenes it happened even if it was December. It was basically Bethlehem, so it was Middle East. It was kind of hot, but to me to see that without the snow and without the pine trees is weird. So we it's like a global European Mandela effect. We know that Jesus was born in a cold situation, and we cannot accept that there were palms and not pine trees in the actual scenes. It's very weird.
At least Isaac Newton was born in the cold, and we actually know his birth date. So that's yeah. I'm trying to promote the optionality when it comes to Christmas. So that you can celebrate it whenever you want, really. Like, why are we all celebrating at the same time?
Newton was fine, but I'm more like a Leibniz guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did an episode like about a month back about the fees being high, and it was my best attempt at explaining why and why it's regarded. But I thought we'll bring you in to explain a bit more about this and why things are the way they are. So first of all, why are ordinals retarded?
So ordinals, just to clarify, are not directly connected with the fee situation. So we will dive into all the distinctions and details. Ordinals are the new name for a scheme proposed in 2012. You can still find it on Bitcoin Talk. I will send you the link. You can put it in the description. And in 2012, somebody said, in Bitcoin, there is not a notion of a single Satoshi. That doesn't exist. You have an UTXO, you spend the UTXO entirely, and then you create other UTXO. So the Satoshi amount is just a natural number that describes the size of the UTXO, but you cannot distinguish the single atoms of the UTXO. You just know the size. Then you kill it, and a new one is born. But somebody said in 2012, what if we assign arbitrarily one single number for each Satoshi? So we can track it even after we spend it. For example, you can do that arbitrarily. You can do something like a first in, first out logic. So you say, okay, let's say that the UTXO I'm spending as the first Satoshi, which is somehow connected with the first Satoshi of the first output of the same transaction when it comes out. So we do first in, first out logic, and we delete the fees, we adjust, and we can track Satoshis arbitrarily. This is important to say that this is completely arbitrary, not just in the sense that any software is arbitrary. As you teach me, Knut, every software is just agreement, so we can have a meta agreement on top of that. But it's a different level of arbitrarity in the sense that there is no specific clear reason to choose this versus any other kind of correlation. It's just like, it's not even a software decision. It's just a arbitrary ordering decision, but it's equivalent from a functionality point of view, from first in, last out, or just pick it in between. Let's give a metaphor to this. Assuming that Bitcoin is like gold, let's see that we cannot track single gold atoms inside the gold bars and gold bullions. We can't. So gold is fungible, but we don't like that because for some reason we want to track gold atoms. And so we took the satellite images of gold trucks going into big foundries and coming out. And so we say, okay, from now on, every atom of every truck coming in is the first atom of the first truck coming out. So we know that something can happen within the foundry that we don't see from the satellite. So we know that they can be switched, they can be moved, they can be sold, they can be both. But we just say that we decide this is a thing. So it's a very weak kind of meta protocol. It's a meta protocol that will miss a lot of valuable information about what happens in between. So people reacted to this idea in 2012 in very different ways. I was not there in Bitcoin yet until the next year, and then I started to read all the discussion in 2013. And there were many, and I had some physical discussion with. I remember back then I was discussing with Peter Todd, Alex Mizrachi, Lawrence Naum, a few other people about this. The French guy that created Coin Prism. But anyway, there was like Coin Prism, CoinSpark, Chromaway, a lot of colored names to do this colored coin thing. The main objection were, one, Satoshis are fungible and they should remain fungible. If you create a logic on infungibility and you actually manage, so if this scheme is successful, we do lose social fungibility basically. So people, something is fungible because people consider it fungible. If people stop considering it fungible, you are breaking fungibility of an object. The counter objection was, yes, but this is just opt-in. So you can do it or not. Yeah, but if you do it, you reduce the fungibility of everything else. If this scheme becomes very successful, in every transaction, you have a lot of Satoshis that are not fungible anymore. And so all the other Satoshis, they will lose fungibility set, basically. And you will also damage privacy because people that applies chain analysis heuristic, they would be able to add a new heuristic. Like now I assume that this is the change, this is the payment. I assume that all the inputs are from the same person, but I also assume that people will try to preserve the first Satoshi with the first Satoshi and the second with the second. So I can easily undo a coin join because now there is no coin join anymore. Like this output here must be this because this is a Satoshi that people doesn't want to lose in exchange for another Satoshi. So for example, you cannot have coin join anymore. You cannot have Lightning routing anymore because if you in Lightning, you put Satoshis into UTXO, assuming this meta protocol. And then Satoshi stays there from a non-chain perspective, but actually they get exchanged from the point of view of routing. And the ordinal theory cannot track this. So you lose this information completely. So these colored coin schemes, they were problematic for privacy. Also, they were problematic for the divisibility, because if you want to represent money, 2.1 quadrillion of unity seems like enough for at least the next couple of thousands of years. But if you want to represent literally everything, like it was the theory, you can represent stocks, bonds, bonus points, air miles, air time of cell phones. If you want to represent everything that is represented in Google spreadsheet or Microsoft Excel right now using unfungible Satoshis, now 2.1 quadrillion runs out pretty quick, even just assuming the discount operation of the major supermarket in Europe. So there was a problem of divisibility. Then people started to say, instead of doing the single Satoshi tracking, which is unsustainable, we can just do something else. Like in every transaction, we write something in the transaction, we encode some information. Just like imagine that we are sending bank wires, and we use the Swift protocol to play basically some chess game. So I put like bishop in c3 in the Swift protocol, and we play a game. This is inefficient, but I mean, as long as SEPA wires are free, why not to do that? We can do that. This has some advantages for privacy, for example, compared to the colored coin idea, and it's more divisible because now you can a single UTXO with, let's say, 3 million of satoshis can actually contain 3 billions of these arbitrary units. So stuff evolved from that 2012 idea very far from there. And the latest evolution, in not just chronologically, but also in my opinion, from a point of view of maturity of the idea, is what I called RGB in 2018, which is basically, let's just use a Bitcoin transaction that can send Bitcoin to other people for other purposes. Let's just use them for what they do very well, which is avoiding double spending. So following the theory that Peter Todd called the single-use seal. So the Bitcoin transaction is just a anti-double spending kind of seal that you close around something, and then all the relevant data, you put them completely off chain and off band, and you pass it in a peer-to-peer network that is not Bitcoin. So what are ordinals actually, and why they are retarded? Basically, a couple of years ago, somebody coming from the shitcoin world rediscovered the same idea of 2012. Instead of making like a prior art research and just saying this old idea was cool, I fixed somehow the problems that made it fail in 2012, they just completely ignored the story. And even more, the people following this idea, they were completely unaware of the Bitcoin story, completely unaware of the trade-offs, of the problems, of the reasons that people didn't like the idea originally, of the consequences on the op-return wars back in 2013, 2014. So there were a lot of, there was a big chunk of Bitcoin history completely deleted for the typical eternal September effect. So these people are coming now, they are coming from usually shitcoins, they're coming from other kind of stuff. They don't know Bitcoin history. We are not very well organized and equipped to transmit it, probably because there is a BitMEX research. They have a great article about the op-return war. You can find Bitcoin talk is still indexed on Google. You can search it, so you can find stuff. That's true. But there is not an easy way to say, okay, I have this idea. Let's see organically if it was already discussed. And, there is the law in Bitcoin that everything that seems new was already discussed in Bitcoin Talk in 2013. And usually proposed first by Gregory Maxwell, and usually also killed first by Gregory Maxwell. So the rule is well, this is an exception because the proposer was not Gregory, but one of the people killing it was actually Gregory. And so I used them in Prague in my speech. I used the word retarded, not just to trigger political correctness, but also to signify that this is just coming late. All this debate was already had, and there were all the objections that we can make, and we will make them. They were already being made. So, in my opinion, the hype of ordinals, they were not just a problem because of the issues of this scheme for privacy, for divisibility, and for everything else. They were a problem because they were a symptom of a very strong eternal September effect. So the fact that you think, so I started to read articles about ordinals being the only innovation in Bitcoin. So an idea already proposed, implemented, and rejected by the community to several degrees in 2012, and an idea that was already used as a stepping stone to actually move away from that idea in completely different research lines, that is innovation. So just going back, reproducing the same thing, ignoring completely the history. So for me, ordinals were not just a problem in themselves, because I don't think I think that eventually it's true that if ordinal theory gets widespread, you lose privacy. But it's also true that if you need privacy, that need will destroy ordinal theory, because people will need Lightning Network, they will need CoinJoin, and so they cannot track Satoshi because they need fungibility to use money. So it's the other way around. I think that the need for privacy and divisibility will make it fail again and again, like it was in 2012. But what really triggered me was not the proposal; it was the complete misunderstanding of the history of Bitcoin that portrays this proposal as something new, as a novelty, as innovation, when it's actually going back to ignore all the steps that we had done in the last years. So for me, the retardedness was not just a cognitive point, but was also a chronological point. We're just coming that this debate is coming too late. We already solved it, and there are no new elements. The only new elements are, there are new elements. That would be unfair. The new elements are basically the fact that there was an idea that was already used in Bitcoin with counterparty, rare papers, that this idea of digital collectibles. This idea was niche back in 2012, 2013, and now during the cycle of 2021, it became the new mainstream buzzword. So if ICOs were the buzzword in 2017, NFTs were the buzzword in 2021. So that's the only new thing at the social layer. There was interest by noobs into an idea that was already broken. This idea had its new prime time, then it died again, basically, in shitcoins. So NFTs became the thing, and that you remember, like the metaverse. Jack Dorsey selling the tweet. Everything was like incredibly big, and then everything basically disappeared. So this idea of I do that on Bitcoin was from a sociological point of view, was a way to keep alive a hype that was dying, because NFTs on shitcoins are dying. So we need a new narrative to keep our NFT alive. And a new narrative was, what if we do the same but on Bitcoin? That's very, very new, except that it's exactly how it started back in the days.
Yeah, and doing it on Bitcoin, like, it sort of goes against their own previous narratives, because it sort of validates Bitcoin as the thing. So if you're going to scam me on Bitcoin, because that's at least I know that the Satoshi is worth something in the future.
It does, and this is also one of the reasons that I think this is a problematic point, though, because from one point of view, it does validate what we always said. So basically, you had a narrative that shitcoins were new and Bitcoin was old dinosaur tech. That was your narrative, and now your narrative is wait, we are not dead yet, because we can do the same but on Bitcoin. So this is the novelty. So first Bitcoin was the old tech, and now it's the novelty. So it's clearly a capitulation on the narrative point of view. But that's also one reason why people in the Bitcoin camp, people passionate about Bitcoin and caring about Bitcoin, felt not triggered like me about something retarded going on, but actually flattered. Like if they are recognizing that Bitcoin is actually the cool thing, even if they're recognizing that for a very misguided reason, they're still saying damn cool. So these people, these shitcoiners, they were saying that we were dinosaur tech, and now they're calling this old 2012 idea novelty and innovation. I mean, I'm flattered. I love you guys. Come back and call me new, call me innovative, please. So there was this thirst to be recognized as so this. I don't know, something like if you have your enemy calling you a good name for the wrong reason, you feel flattered and you accept it and you enable the wrong reason, because now you feel flattered. So many Bitcoiners lower their bullshit detector settings, because what you're describing is true. There was a narrative capitulation in favor of Bitcoin, and that basically made everybody way less skeptical, not just of bullshit, but also of possible intentional attacks, which is a conspiracy theory Pandora's box that we can open eventually in the discussion.
The metaphor I'm thinking of here is that most people don't know that more time passed between the extinction of the Stegosaur and the T-Rex than between the T-Rex and humanity. Like, So they're getting the retardation wrong. So I try to, like, you're obviously way more knowledgeable about the technical stuff than me, but I tried to make a tweet about this and I've been trying to find like a way to condense this, why this is, why there are a scam. And the thing I came up with it, and I want you to like devil's advocate this thing and try to like point out where I'm wrong here. But as I see it, a Satoshi, as you say, that Satoshis don't exist, but they do exist in our heads. Like it's but it's not just data. It's something else. It's connected to the human being. So because like you need a private key to unlock them. So the Satoshi is really just a measurement to which extent you're allowed to change the network structure by spending Bitcoin. And the arbitrary data is in the op return thing, right? So it's not connected to the Satoshi, but to the Coinbase transaction, right? And so when you move those Satoshis, like what happens really, because you can't move the arbitrary data, you can only move the Satoshis, which don't exist. So how does this work? These Ordinals people, do they take all this data and like how do they move it to the next place in the blockchain, like or time chain? How does this work? They just copy paste it like everything else.
That's that. So now I will play devil's advocate against your issue, but it's important to clarify that now we are introducing a new buzzword. So ordinals were just a new name for the old way to track Satoshis, or pretend that you're tracking and make pretend to track Satoshis with some problems. Now, on top of that, the idea was the idea of inscriptions. So why should they track some Satoshi? Nobody cares. Well, one reason could be that this Satoshi is connected to some transaction which is important. For example, let's say that we're tracking Satoshi from the first halving transaction from Satoshi himself, or we are tracking the first Satoshi from a new difficulty era or from a new halving. So there are like some kind of different tiers of rarity, which are depending on the system itself. They are depending directly from the blockchain, time chain kind of intrinsic characteristic. What if we can make some of these Satoshi psychologically connected to something else? For example, with inscriptions. So we use a technique that was already existent and unrelated to ordinals and unrelated to colored coins. It was used, for example, in Eternity Wall, was a cool website created by my friend Riccardo Casatta in 2016 and 17. And
I remember that.
Remember, it was cool. It was Twitter on chain. So you pay your transaction to write something on a return. Then you can answer. You go to answer, and then there is a link in which the first output will basically pay the previous output. And so basically you will create on chain a graph of answers, and you can also put like. And if you put like, you will spend a few Satoshis to like a tweet. So the main point of Eternity Wall was this tweet will never be deleted, so they remain forever. So they were especially love letters or hate letters, was mostly the two most strongest sentiments that you want to last forever, or to pretend they will last forever. And so Eternity Wall was cool. But it was unrelated to ordinals. There was no ordinal theory. It was just this. The only meta protocol was this answer idea in which we interpreted some op return in the same transaction, paying to some outputs as a graph of trading in Twitter when you answer to something. So that was an unrelated kind of thing. And inscriptions are the idea of bringing these together. So instead of just saying that this Satoshi is more rare because of something, like the difficulty period or the halving period, we say that it's scarce because it's connected to the encoding that I put in the op return. So I write hello in the op return, and now when I use the ordinal theory on top of the encoding, I will move my hello to somebody. So this doesn't make any sense. But the argument would be that yes, but that was not making any sense already. So if we are already pretending that something which is not technically distinguishable or distinct, like a Satoshi, is moving from this address to this address, which is not the case. So basically, if we are pretending that Bitcoin is account based, where you can move some asset in some different account, then what's the problem into pretending on top of that now you are moving some kind of moral ownership of the sentence or an image? So I say a sentence like Merry Christmas to everybody. Now, there is no technical way to own this sentence, because the sentence is information and it's replicated in everybody's else head with that they read it. There is no concept of ownership which can be defined. But if we are already available to make up concepts that are not technically consistent, why stop to one? Why do we have to stop to transfer the Satoshi? Let's also transfer the ownership of the Merry Christmas. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's a good philosophical distinction. So why can we, when you say that Bitcoin is an agreement, that's very interesting, because everything basically that we do is an agreement, everything is some kind of convention. But there is a subtle line between conventional and arbitrary. Conventional is like, we have to agree on something to make it real. We have to act upon a certain agreement, upon a certain convention to make it real. But it's not arbitrary in the sense that if there are reasons, the convention is made like this and not in completely different way. When people talk about money, for example, there is this meme that money is a shared delusion. This is a somehow deep, somehow dumb meme. It's deep because it takes in the conventional side of money, but it's dumb because it makes money arbitrary, like a money with a different kind of scarcity, a different kind of visibility, a different kind of recognizability that didn't matter. So gold was money, but sushi could have been money as well. No, that's not true, because the objective external characteristics of sushi were making the arbitrary choice of using sushi as money objectively worse than the other conventional choice of using gold. So the point is that if people think that Bitcoin is not just an agreement, but it's an arbitrary agreement, that it is like that, but it could be just like that, then they can add other arbitrary agreements on top. One is, let's assume that Satoshis are trackable with this arbitrary convention. This is arbitrary and not just conventional, because it's technically inconsistent. So you will lose information, you will break information, you will break how the system works. So it's not just arbitrary, but it's wrong in a kind of objective way. It will break down the system in a way that is not functional. And what you're describing, just one small step of imagination more. Let's also move around Merry Christmas, the sentence. You can't, but if everybody pretend that they can, so it's like, so you are not religious or in a conventional way, but you have to know that somebody in eBay, it was I think it was.
Well, I act as if Bitcoin exists. To paraphrase Peterson. So that's the extent of my religiousness.
But in a traditional sense, you may be skeptical about the devil buying souls for devil contracts, right? But you have to know that in PayPal, there was a moment, I think it was around 2002, I don't remember, but with my friends in high school, we were watching that. And people started to sell souls on eBay. So there were people saying, I sell my soul, and just for the lulz, somebody else was buying those, like $3 for a soul. And PayPal had to actually, I don't remember the details, I have to research this, but I remember PayPal basically stopping some of the trades, like if you cannot donate organs or something like that. So this is another example. So there is no way we can meaningfully sell your soul on PayPal, or sorry, on eBay. There is no trivial way to do it.
666 Satoshis, please.
Exactly. So we can make a convention that I'm selling my soul to you. That will not have any impact or on anything which is consistent to anything. So it's totally arbitrary. You can say, after a while, you can say, no, I changed my mind, and now I exit the agreement, and there will no way to enforce the agreement on you socially or technically or economically. So it's just a game, it's just a LARP. So Satoshi transfers is the same, and transferring an image or transferring transferring the ownership on a public image or the ownership on a public sentence is just it is just a dream. It's just an imagination. Interestingly enough, somebody could say, "Wait, but that's patents as well." If you or like copyright on a song, I
Which
go
are also
around, I
bullshit.
whistle a song, right? I whistle a song, and now this song you will listen to it, and it will change something in your brain, which is your property. So now you can reproduce the song arbitrarily, but somehow that the fact that your brain is changed is now my property. So I own that piece of your brain that can reproduce the song. So now you have to pay me every time you used it. You didn't enter an agreement with me when you listen to the song. You just turn on the radio without entering any agreement. The radio changed your brain. Now I own that part of your brain without your consent. So this is copyright. It doesn't make any sense. But in this case, we can make it affect reality with guns. So when a mafia with guns take some arbitrary, meaningless, inconsistent agreement and they enforce it with guns, you can make it exist for some time. It's not a good existence. It will ruin a lot of things economically. It would be a negative sum game, but it will exist in reality. The problem, but also the beautiful thing in Bitcoin, is that people cannot come to you and shoot you if you reuse the Merry Christmas sentence that you read on the operator, or if you right click a frog image from encoded in an operator. So in that sense, it's completely stupid because luckily there is nobody with guns that can prevent you from right clicking.
All right. You might have noticed that we've recently partnered with Amber App. After our episode with Izzy, their CEO and our close friend, we knew we would have to partner with them in some way. If you haven't seen our episode with Izzy, definitely go check it out. You'll see why it's such a great fit. And honestly, they're following the orange glowing light like Izzy always says. And that's exactly what we try to do here at the Freedom Footprint Show. The big news about Amber App is that they're going to be launching their version 2.0. I've seen some of the screenshots and it looks fantastic. They're going to be including a non-custodial on-chain wallet, an anonymous Lightning wallet, a fiat wallet, and finally, it's going to be an exchange, of course. It's going to be just this super app. They're also going to be launching globally. Everyone's going to be able to use it. We're really excited about all that. Stay tuned with us and you'll hear all about it. And for now, check out their website, amber.app, and the episode with Izzy to find out more. Next up, Wasabi Wallet, the privacy by default, open source, non-custodial Bitcoin wallet with CoinJoin built in. It's the easy-to-use, comprehensive, affordable way to make your coins private. And the best part is they've been making huge improvements to the app. They're really focusing on the user experience, adding advanced features for power users. They just keep getting better. You send your coins to your Wasabi wallet and they get combined with loads of other coins using the Wabi-Sabi protocol, so they're private on the other end. Your tracks are covered, so you can work on expanding your freedom footprint without worrying about your privacy. So, check out wasabiwallet.io and download Wasabi today.
This reminds me of a birthday gift we gave to my grandmother like 30 years ago. She's long since passed, but we gave her a star because there was this website where you could buy the property rights or the copyright or whatever. You could name a star and buy a certificate that said you owned the star. And to me, this is exactly what these things are. Like the reason that I describe Bitcoin as an agreement, like it's not only that, it's an agreement. The only reason that we agree on these rules is because these rules make it more expensive to try to cheat the system than to play by the rules. That's the reason we agree on these rules. So anything outside of those rules aren't really Bitcoin. It's something else. And so owning one of these JPEGs is, or owning quote unquote, is just like that star register thing. It's
the same, yeah.
It's there. I mean, the star is a bit trickier and a bit more ownable because you need a telescope to see it, because all the stars you can see have already been named. So this was a star that was far away, but and it's there for everyone to see, and your property rights to it don't really do anything because you can't do anything with a star. And it's the same with the JPEG. Like it's even easier for everyone to see that because it's an open public ledger. Everyone can see everything in it. So any arbitrary data on it is just not ownable. Like the only thing, and you could argue that a Satoshi is not ownable either. I mean, it's not even real, or a private key. Like it's just a number. The only thing that you attach, the reason you attach value to it is that you know how hard it is to like just guess the number. It'll take you millions of years. So that's why you find it valuable. But these things, I mean, it's a great big nothing burger, or nada burguesa, we would say here in Spain. Yeah.
I think your analogy is perfect. I just want to make it a little bit worse because stars are not really used for anything else. So when you name some invisible star after your grandmother, okay, that doesn't change reality. It's not enforceable, and so it's double spendable because you can give the star to your grandmother, and I can give the same star to my grandmother, and nothing will ever happen because there is no way to tell the difference. But unless there is a centralized enforcement. But let's now assume that we create another website that instead of assigning stars, it does assign other websites. So now we say, if you pay me, I will tell you that you now own Coca-Cola.com. And it's the same level. So you cannot change the Coca-Cola.com website because you don't have SSH access or FTP access to the domain. So the domain from the HTTP protocol point of view is in the hands of the Coca-Cola corporate company. But in my website, if you pay me, I tell you that you do own Coca-Cola.com. So now this is not just equally meaningless. It's not just a nothing burger. This is a stupid burger because now you think you own Coca-Cola, but actually Coca-Cola people do own that in the sense that they can change it. So there is like the problem with colored coins or ordinals is that you are creating an arbitrary game which not only interfere but also conflicts with the previous conventional but not arbitrary and very consequential game that you were already playing on the same information. So we were already playing a game that was a game of money, a game of property with some enforceability due to unknowable private keys or unpredictable block numbers or proof of work thermodynamical characteristics. So there was already a game. It was a very cool game, not an arbitrary game, just half-assed. It was a very intelligent game. And now you're putting your nothing burger, just name a star, on top of conflicting with another game. For example, now we have Bitcoin with Lightning, and we say that we create a channel and we move money from this channel without any on-chain transaction. And this name a star conversion, which is Ordinals, it will conflict with the routing movement because for us we moved the money, and for them outside nothing happened on chain. So there is no way to tell where the Satoshi went. So it's even worse than that. But now we started the conversation with fees, and now we have to get back to fees because since you only had this name star nothing burger or stupid burger moving Satoshis around, you at least didn't write a lot of stuff on the blockchain. You didn't create a lot of problems. But when some maybe because maybe you're making some transaction that you were not going to make otherwise, but I mean, they are transactions. But when you can write arbitrary data on the time chain and pretend to own this arbitrary data, you now create a serious spam problem. So let's go back a second to Eternity Wall. I did use Eternity Wall, and Luke Dashir was angry at Ricardo and me because he said this is spam, and me and Ricardo were answering. This was I think 2015 or 2016, and we said, well, why spam? We are paying the fee to write. And Luke said, oh yes, you are paying the fee to one miner, not to my node, and I still have to download it and to validate it and to store it if I want a full node, a full archival node. So you are using my resources for a way that I didn't agree with when I joined Bitcoin, because I joined Bitcoin knowing that I had to, unfortunately, keep track of all the UTXO set, but that was a sacrifice that I did because that was functional so it was useful to me. When you download all the chain and you build your UTXO set, you do that for a selfish reason, because even if you're keeping somebody else's transaction, these transactions are needed to you to be able to receive that money eventually. So you're building the UTXO set for you, for yourself. If you don't do it, you will not be able to distinguish which money has been spent or not. So in the future, every transaction that you actually validate in your node is a transaction that could be eventually spent to you in the future. So you do this for selfish reason. While Luke was downloading my Eternity World messages and wasting bandwidth, wasting time, and wasting hard disk space, it was not for his future benefit, because this big up return with my joking love hate messages or curse words, they were not useful for him. So he said, this is spam. And we had a discussion about that. This is another case of retardedness, because many of the discussion I'm having today about inscriptions, I had it about Eternity World. And my point was, if I'm paying, my first point was, if it's a valid transaction, cannot be spam. To which Luke said, wait, email spam is always a valid email. The definition of validity has nothing to do with spam. The point of spam is that this is unwanted information for you that is consuming your scarce resources, but it's not that it's violating the protocol. And then the second point was, but we are paying. And Luke said, yeah, but you are not paying me. If you receive spam phone calls, the spammer, he is paying the network. The problem is that he's not paying you and your time to receive the stuff that you don't want. So they're disrupting you, but they're not paying you. Otherwise, it will not be spam. They are paying somebody else. So let's say that let's take away the telephone network. Even if I have free calls, I still pay my energy that I plug in my cell phone. I pay this to the electrical company. So in order to call you and to ruin your day with bullshit and to make you pranks all day, I have to pay somebody because I need the energy. But that doesn't mean it's not spam because I'm paying somebody else. I'm not paying you. So there was a discussion about spam. I think that Luke was right from the philosophical point of view, but me and Riccardo, we also felt it was a little bit like inconsequential, because since there is a cost, and the cost is going to go up eventually in time, the fees will go very up in Bitcoin, we know that. So eventually, this is a self-mitigating problem. Yes, we are free riding your node, but this is going to become so expensive that we will eventually stop. Because the incentive for me to write stuff on the time chain is just Goliardic, romantic kind of art. I mean, there's no real point to do that. There's not real need. It's just like a full leisure, full Goliardic, romantic leisure. So we will stop it eventually. When you put the ordinal theory on top of this encoding on the time chain, now you have the problem, because when I did write on Eternity World, I was spending some money, not as much as today it would be, but I was spending some money, and I was getting in return just some fun. When you do the same, but people believe that you can resell this message to somebody else, now I spend some money, maybe I have some fun, or maybe not even, but now I resell this stuff in this make-believe market. I can resell it to other guys that have an expectation of it to become even higher in price. So you introduce a speculation, gambling, Ponzi expectations inside the data writing. This changes the dynamic, because before, people were writing stuff on the time chain that was considered spam by Luke. Luke was very angry about that. I was not, because yes, it is spam, you're right, but it's not so much, and people will just get tired. But when you introduce the Ponzi expectation of a greater full theory inside the spam, so now you spend money for the spam, but if you can manage to sell the spam, you will make more money that you spent. So now you created basically a game, a bad game, a negative sum game, but you can create a game that is self-sustainable for a while, and that will basically create incentive for people to write spam on the time chain, because now they can resell like the stars. It's like, let's try to make as always, to abuse our metaphors to the extreme. So we have the star registers, and now the market for star registers goes in bubble. And so now you can name a star, and then if you transfer it to somebody else, somebody else will pay you a million times more than when you paid an initial naming. So now there will be basically an incentive to send a lot of hydrogen in some place and to keep it together in order to create a giant star. And that can be destructive for the gravitational equilibrium of the world, but you have a strong incentive to do it. Now, that's not very practical, but spamming the time chain is more practical. And that's what happened. So let's imagine two different things. One thing is creating an arbitrary idea like a star register that you can track something that you cannot meaningfully track because it's not scarce, it's infinitely reproducible. Now you have the idea that you can write on the time chain whatever you want, and people will be forced to download it and validate it and store it if they don't prune forever. Now you put these ideas together, and this is where the problem happens, because only writing on the chain, it is spam, it is problematic, but it's eventually not sustainable. You will get tired. Moving around Satoshis as they are more valuable, it's a problem for fungibility, privacy, but at least it's not a problem for technical scarce resources of Bitcoin. It doesn't spam very much the network. If you put them together, now you have a serious spam attack. Now it could be completely physiologic, like it could be completely, let's say, spontaneous, or it could be also a smart form of attack against Bitcoin. This is the conspiracy theory part. So we all know since the first discussion in 2014, 15, what are the main mining related attacks on Bitcoin. The first obvious, so let's assume that the government can pay for hash rate. If a government can pay for hash rate, what they can do is basically they can pay miners to stop mining. This is the first kind of attack. Just don't mine anymore. I pay you if you keep your ASIC shut. If you do that, that's not very effective because the difficulty will go down, and now other miners will outcompete the bribed miners. So that's not very effective. The second could be, let's do empty blocks. So keep mining, but only with the Coinbase to pay yourself, and stop including other people's transactions. So now you have the same effect of no blocks at all for the other Bitcoiners, but now you do keep the difficulty at the same level. This is a bad attack, especially if you not only mine empty blocks, but you also orphan non-empty blocks. So every time you see a non-empty blocks, you do orphan it to attach to the previous empty blocks, and you create an empty chain, which is keeping the difficulty up. But at least, this is bad, but at least the full nodes during the time of inactivity of Bitcoin, they will not be required to increase their bandwidth or a CPU or data because there's nothing coming basically. So it's bad because Bitcoin is frozen, but also your data in your disk and your bandwidth is frozen. The third kind of attack, which is even more nasty, is we pay the miners to do blocks and not empty, but just not including any meaningful economical activity. They're just full of shit. If we do this is a perfect attack because now difficulty will stay up. The transaction will not happen on the base layer, but also your scarce resources to run a node will become higher and higher as if there was full economic activity. So you get all the problems of a full-floored economic activities, which is increasing your ETX set, in your time chain, in your mempool, plus all the problem of having a frozen activity. This is I'm not saying that this is happening for sure, but what is also triggering for me from the sociological level is that the self-appointed skeptical adversary thinkers of Bitcoin are completely ruling out the possibility that if not this time, another time, spam could be used as a very effective attack against Bitcoin on the layer one. We already defined that spam is not defined by the value for the spammer. So there is some people that say spam is subjective. What is spam for you is not spam for me. Yes, that's true. But the problem is that the only definition that makes sense for spam is from the point of view of the receiver. Because for the sender, spam always, by definition, makes sense economically. Otherwise, they will not do it. From a Misesian point of view, if you don't find value in spamming somebody else, you will not spam. So the spam is always valuable from the point of view of the sender of the spam. Sometimes spam is also valuable from the point of view of the network of the intermediaries, or the guys selling me electricity to spam you with my phone calls or sending me the minutes of the network. So it's valuable for me because I'm the spammer and I find value in spamming. It's valuable for the network and for the electricity because I'm paying them to spam you. It's just the problem. The only meaningful definition is that it's not valuable for you. That's the whole definition of spam. So a spam attack can be a very smart kind of attack on Bitcoin, and this is the other problem. So there is a problem that I see of not knowing history, a problem that I see of not thinking clearly about the definition of what can be considered spam, and then there is a problem of not even thinking that it could be, if not this time, maybe the next, but it could be the prototype of an organized, well-funded, structured attack on Bitcoin's layer one.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. Yeah, these when the fees go up when people buy these stars, I mean, they, as we've established, they can't really own a star. It's just someone else owning Uranus. But
How long were you thinking about this?
For too long.
The show is also sponsored by Orangepill app, the Bitcoin-only social network where you can stack friends who stack sats. You can connect with your favorite Bitcoiners on the app, make local connections, and even connect with Bitcoiners around the world. You can see what's going on in your local area and connect with Bitcoiners around you. I've been to multiple events organized on Orangepill app, and they brought Bitcoiners together from all over. And now with group chat, it's easier than ever to stay in touch with all of your Bitcoin friends. The best part is that you know it's high signal. There's no spam on Orangepill app because everyone pays to be there. So download Orangepill app on Apple or Android, send me or Knut a DM, and start building your local network of Bitcoiners today. Next up, the Bitcoin Way. Their mission is to onboard, educate, and remove barriers to taking self-custody of your Bitcoin. They cover everything from cold wallets to nodes, no KYC Bitcoin purchases, inheritance planning, payments, and more. Whether you're new to Bitcoin or you're an experienced Bitcoiner looking to expand your freedom footprint, or you know someone who this sounds perfect for, the Bitcoin Way has something for you. They have a skilled team, well-versed in the Bitcoin space, and their goal is to make all the complexities of Bitcoin as straightforward as possible for everyone. And the best part is you can get started with a free 30-minute call with their team. Go to thebitcoinway.com/contact for more info. Our newest sponsor is Geyser. They are the portal to the creator economy on Bitcoin. On Geyser, creators can monetize their work through their communities in a social and engaging way, and supporters can send sats to their favorite projects. Geyser has also recently integrated with Zaps and Podcasting 2.0, so every Zap sent to a Geyser address shows up on the Geyser page. We have a Geyser fund ourselves. It's the best way to support our show directly with Bitcoin. So whether you're a creator or a supporter, check out Geyser at geyser.fund today.
They are a glimpse into the future. Like fees, the fee proportion of the miner's reward in relation to the subsidy will go up over time. So we will have higher and higher fees. Like imagine like the spam attack you're talking about. Like if you have a money printer, if you're the Federal Reserve, you could do this kind of attack for quite a while. Like and what? So a question here would be like, how would your average node running Bitcoiner, your pleb, what can a single pleb do to prevent this from happening, and why was op return there in the first place? Like, is it even necessary to have the op return? Like, why are we entering another fork wars at some point? Will we fork it away, or do we just do the Luke thing and run what's his version called? Knots. Yeah, it's a very nice name. So what happens there? What do you foresee the near term and long term future?
So this is another. I told you that one of the reasons why the Bitcoin community is not very effectively answering to this problem, and it's very confused, and there is a lot of debate and a lot of drama. That one of the reasons is that there is the flattering thing that, okay, now shitcoiners, they are saying that Bitcoin is better, so I'm flattered. That's one. But the other one is that there is, I admit, that, in my opinion, and I disagree with Luke about this, there is not an obvious solution to this attack. There are mitigations, but they are not obvious. They are not perfect. They are not silver bullets. They are kind of hard. And now I will discuss some of them. So the problem is that many people started to say, if I don't have a solution, then I want to say this is not a problem. So like there is a world hunger or cancer. I cannot stop it, so it's fine. I mean, it's fine. I don't want to call it a problem anymore because I'm used to say that. I'm used to think that if there is a problem in Bitcoin, there is an obvious way to fix it. If I can find the obvious way to fix it, then I have to deny it's a problem. I think that's another issue that we are facing right now. So what we can do an escalation of things. But first, let me answer to your second question. Why there is even an op return there? Well, the point is that encoding spam into any kind of cryptographic system, it's almost. Luke Dasher made a few examples that makes it very, very hard, but it's almost impossible to prevent. For example, in Bitcoin, people that wanted to encode stuff, they didn't start to do it in op return. They started to do it with fake multisigs. So they were sending Bitcoin to an address, to a script that was composed of, let's say, these 5 public keys will have to sign in order to move this UTXO in the future. And the 5 public keys, they were not real public keys in the sense that nobody knew the corresponding private keys. But you cannot tell that technically because every number of that format could be a valid public key as far as you know. It is not, but the reason it is not is that nobody knows the corresponding private key. And the public key is just an encoding of some message or some image or some fart noise or whatever. So the public key is encoding is not functioning as a public key. But from a technical perspective, you cannot know easily. So the problem of creating new unspendable outputs is that you don't only spam the time chain, you also spam the so-called UTXO set, which is basically the collection of the unspent coins that you may receive in the future. This collection is very delicate in Bitcoin, even more than the time chain, because the time chain, you have to download it all if you want to run a node, but then you can delete it. You can prune it after you validated the node. While the UTXO set, you have to keep it all. You cannot delete it. The time chain has a block space limit to its growth. So for now, after SegWit, we have 4 megabytes maximum of growth. So in the worst case scenario, the attacker can feed us 4 megabytes of spam every 10 minutes, which is a lot. But I mean, and that's it. In the UTXO set, there is no limit to the growth. There is a maximum limit, which is if you only put UTXO set information in all the blocks in the future, then you get to the same limit. But it's a terrible limit to have. Like nobody will run a node when there are 4 megabytes of UTXO set every 10 minutes. That because it's not prunable. You cannot prune it. You have to keep that forever, or at least it's not prunable in a very obvious way. So the idea of op return is the name op return is actually a return operator in computer science. It says when you arrive here and you see this opcode, your transaction your output just fails, so you can basically not spend it. So if you write transaction that has an op return in the output, the transaction is fine. But if you try to spend this output, when the script engine will meet the op return, it will fail immediately because this is return. Stop it. So you can never spend it. If you have the guarantee that you cannot spend it, your node can become smart and can say, let's prune away all the op return. So all the output that by definition of the script language of Bitcoin are not spendable, you will delete it from the UTXO set. So the idea of the Bitcoin developers to enable op return was to give a venting venue for spammers. So if you want to spam, at least spam in a way that will make for us easy to prune the UTXO set and to don't keep this spam forever. So op return was a venting mechanism. That's also why Knut, the Luke Dasher version of fork of Bitcoin Core, they do have an op return. Luke said, okay, you may want to use Bitcoin to store stuff. I believe that you storing gigabytes of movie would be unacceptable for me because it would be too demanding for my node without paying me. So I don't accept that. But if you want me to store forever and for you a hash of a document, that's that's still spam from a philosophical point of view, but that's like acceptable. So a hash is 30 something bytes of usually to 256 SHA plus some identifier. Okay, I can store that. So Luke and Bitcoin Core, they said, let's give everybody, for every transaction, 40 bytes of arbitrary data, not because it's good, but because if you have these, at least you will not put it in a way that it's even worse. So there was a real pragmatic concession to the idea that if you really want to spam, at least spam in a way that doesn't hurt the users as much as before. So they created the 40 bytes. Then Bitcoin Core increased it eventually back in 2015 or something, increased it to 80 bytes, while Knut kept the original size because Luke said, no, well, what's the limit? This is an interesting point, and then I will go to the answer about what to do, what a pleb can do. But I want to also make another distinction, which is very, very important, and people tend to misunderstand in Bitcoin. There is a difference from validity rules and standardness rules. Validity rules are those rules that, if violated, you will reject a block. So you will just reject the block, even if there is a lot of proof of work. If there is a transaction that is inflating beyond the schedule or is still in Bitcoin without the proper signature, this transaction will make the entire block invalid, and so the block goes away. It's invalid. Your node will censor this transaction systematically because it's not valid. But there is something more subtle, which is standardness. If you receive a transaction that is valid but not standard, your node will cancel it from the mempool and will not rebroadcast it because it's considered non-standard. So it's probably spam or something fishy going on. So you reject it. But if you find it in a block, then you say, okay, now at this point I accept it. So there are transactions that are standard and valid, and some transactions that are non-standard but valid, and some transactions that are non-valid and so obviously also non-standard. This is, one example is a dust transaction. So I make a transaction that moves 1 Satoshi. The problem is that the economic cost for every node to download, validate, and rebroadcast the transaction is currently higher than 1 Satoshi. So this is clearly not a good deal for everybody. So if you find a transaction that spends only 1 Satoshi in the block, you will accept it. But if you find it in your mempool spam filter will immediately delete it. Another example is op return. If you create an op return with 100 bytes and you put it in a block, Bitcoin Core and also Bitcoin nodes will accept it as valid. So Luke's node will accept your giant op return in a block if it finds it, but it will not accept it in the mempool. So you have two defense mechanisms. One is the timeless one, is like, this looks like suspicious, I don't want it, I will not broadcast it. And the second is, yeah, but now there's proof of work on this, so I will have to be a little bit more considerate. So Bitcoin Core always used both. For example, any transaction that has a long op return is valid potentially, but non-standard if it goes beyond 80 in Core or beyond 40 in Knots. Every transaction that has 2 op returns, so you can have transaction with 2 op returns and 2 options, this is valid, but it's non-standard. Your Bitcoin Core will reject any transaction with 2 op returns in the outputs. And there are other examples like this. And so now the point is what we do. So at the end of my presentation in Prague, I made a classification of stuff from the most obvious stuff to do to the most unlikely stuff to do. I think that the most obvious stuff is wait it out. Many people are criticizing this as doing nothing, but I think that there is some value in just waiting. So I will tell people, you don't have to be passive, but you don't have to be rushing into something that could be worse than the problem. So be calm, understand, think, breathe, and don't do something stupid immediately. So
Hodling is using. Like,
yeah, exactly.
it's an
Holding
active
is
act.
using, and waiting and resisting is reacting in some way, even if you just passively wait. The second point would be basically study history. So study logic, be able to say, so you cannot do technical stuff like a fork, like a mempool filter, if you're not even able to name correctly the problem and to describe the problem correctly in a consistent way. So before you apply any patch, before you apply any fork, before you create a mining farm, at least think clearly about what is spam and what is not spam, what is censorship and what is not censorship, what is validity and what is standardness. And I think we are very stuck at point 2 right now. The problem can be analyzed and can be mitigated better if more users understand at least the terms of the problem. And I think we are severely lacking about this. So my effort right now is not on the other points of the list that I will tell you. Some other people are thinking about that, but I'm stuck. I'm stuck here. Like, first, we have to make things clear, which is also a problem that we had in the block size wars, because the block size wars were not just a problem of creating lightning, solving malleability, or enlarging the block. It was a problem of clear thinking about the trade-offs in Bitcoin and the goals in Bitcoin. So we are still stuck at the like thinking problem, like understanding even what the terms of the problem are. The third point could be the update of the filters in Bitcoin Core at the level of mempool or moving to Knots. So if you are a node runner, right now, your Bitcoin Core will reject any, so there is a field in your configuration file, which is called data carrier size. So any time that some transaction will include this suspicious data that is probably spam, your mempool will reject it, unless that is found within a Taproot TapScript spend. Because when Taproot was introduced, Bitcoin Core didn't find consensus about updating the same logic of filters that were there before also to Taproot. So there was just a lacking update. Look in Knots updated the filter, but Bitcoin Core did not. You can do it manually. You can do it manually if you are able, or you can install a patch which is called disrespector patch in order to disrespect Ordinals, or you can install Knots and run Knots. So what is this third option doing? This is doing something like your node will save some resources. So you will save some bandwidth resources for your node, some CPU resources for your node, and some disk resources for your node. The nodes connected to you will not receive the spam from you, which is they will receive it anyway because every node is very well connected. So if the spam is out, they will eventually receive it, but not from you. So you're doing like, like the gift. I'm doing my part. You do the little part not to spam your friend nodes, which is appreciated, I think, and you're saving some resources on your node. Now, if you do that alone, that's it. You have the moral ground of feeling you're not spamming your friends, and you're saving a little bit of resources in your node. But when the spam will enter a block, you will acquire it anyway, and you will validate it because it is valid, even if it's not standard. So there is no validity problem, just a standardness problem. So now, if it's only you, it's basically it. You're not gaining more. But if everybody does it, then propagation of spam becomes harder. And so spam will have a very hard time to get into blocks because propagation is affected. This is actually happening right now in Bitcoin Core. If you create a long op return of 90 bytes and you pay a lot of fees, very, very high fees, and you send it in the network, this will probably not be mined because even if fees are very high, every Bitcoin Core node will just cut it, so we'll never get to the miners. The objection to this, and it's a serious objection, I'm not downplaying it, is that this is an incentive for people really motivated to spam people to call the mining pool directly and to send them off ban. This is actually not even just theoretical. That happened. The first 4 megabyte blocks in the history of Bitcoin was full spam, zero fee. It didn't pay any fee to the workers. So people working on the Luxor 4 megabyte Taproot wizard, they got zero fees. for that spam. It was a block full of only spam. And why did Luxor spend with their workers' money on that? Because they were paid off. We don't know the amount. It's impossible to verify, but there is a claim that they was paid directly by the spammers. So basically, you have this problem of incentivizing people sending directly this type of band. So there is a debate to be had here that I respect. I don't respect much the debate that is like, there is no spam. Spam is in your heart, and nobody can define spam. No, you can define spam very well. I don't respect calling censorship what Knut does, but not what Core does. That doesn't make any sense. If Knut is censorship, then Core is a censorship machine. So that doesn't make any sense. And censorship becomes good in that case, and because it's not censorship resistant, nor it should be, if we define censorship like that. But at this level, there is something to be said. So look, for example, now the sides of the debate are, Luke is saying, hey, Bitcoin Core always mitigated spam with mempool filters. To some degree, it did work, and it did not push people off band so much. So you're saying that this solution, which is short term, is to be ruled out completely. I disagree. We did it for Core until now. Let's keep it doing it after Taproot, and let's keep updating the filters. And the other party, like Peter Todd on Ben Karma, they are saying there are even more. There are two extremes. Like they're saying, let's keep doing that and update the filters in the mempool. And there is Ben Karman and Peter Todd saying, you know what? Even the old filters in Bitcoin Core, they are wrong. There is no reason we should filter out stuff if they pay a lot of fees, because temporarily you're putting them out of the mempool. But if they pay high fees, eventually somebody will include them. So when you see something with high fees, even if it's obvious spam, just include it, because eventually somebody will. So you're just fighting against you're fighting against the economic incentives. And in between, there are people that are like politically disoriented that say, I don't want to update the filters, but I also don't want to delete the filters that I have. So they are in this inconsistent. So Core right now is an inconsistent position between two consistent extremes that are keep doing filtering, or like Luke, or stop doing filtering for high fee transaction in general, even the old filters. And Core is just, I don't know, I'll do nothing. I don't get me into this. So this is the third option about mempool filtering. Then there would be a fourth option that would be creating some anti-spam mechanism, also the level of consensus validity. So forking spam away. So when you find some transaction which is spam, even if it's in the block, you reject it. This is not something that most people, including Luke, are considering seriously, because the definition of spam, dust, while kind of objective, it's very dynamic. For example, one Satoshi is dust right now because one Satoshi is a fraction of $1. When one Satoshi will be $1, may not be spam at all. It will make a very reasonable transaction to do. So the idea of, or even like op-return, that we may change signatures in a way that witnesses will be very large, very short. We may have Mimble-Wimble kind of complications. So to fix in the consensus this kind of filters is a bad idea. So the initial design of Satoshi was twofold. With consensus, we are kind of liberal. We allow for strange stuff because we don't know why you may use it. With mempool policies, default, we are strict because here, when there is obvious bullshit, we will delete it. So almost nobody is proposing to fork the consensus in order to delete spam from blocks. Most of the people are I'm stuck here, which is at least let's define spam correctly. And most of the people are fighting here, like, do we update the mempool filters on Bitcoin Core, or do we use Knut or not? Then there is this block situation, which is something that almost nobody is discussing. There are two variants here about the mempool. One variant is what if your node is not just your node? You're not a pleb, but you are a pleb with ASICs. You are a pleb that can crunch hashes. Now that's very different. That's completely different, because now if you do apply filters and you are a pleb with ASICs, for example, you are Ocean a mining pool, or you are a crazy solo miners with some ASICs. Now it changes completely, because not only you are avoiding to transmit the spam to other peers, and you are sparing your resources from the mempool spam for a while, but now you are producing blocks eventually that are spam free. These blocks are not blocks with fewer transactions. They are blocks with more economic transaction, because the transactions that were stuck out because of the spam, they can finally enter your block. So, for example, Luke Dasher's point about Ocean is, look, even if we lose the fight against spam, every Ocean block is a block that gives reliefs to all the transactions that are priced out by the spam. So it's not true that the sum is zero. It's not true that what we are doing is useless. Even if spams keeps existing and keeps entering the blocks, at least in my block, as long as I can find some, there is no spam and there is more space for actual Bitcoin transactions, which is something interesting to discuss. Of course, there is another discussion here, which is, yes, but then you will make less money, so you will go out of business compared to people that are actually including spam, which is an interesting argument, but it's not 100% sure, for the reason that right now all the entities that are accepting spam, they are also for the same reason of profit maximizing, they are also accepting out of band payments of very different style. For example, Luxor, they accept spam, but they created lots of blocks with zero fees for the miners and only off band payment of spam. So these blocks was very it was profitable for the pool, but not profitable for the miners, because they didn't see anything of that. And pool, for various reasons, maybe including also all the covered ASIC pools, we don't know, but for many reasons they create a lot of empty blocks. So and pool leaves a lot of fees on the table. So Ocean doesn't create empty blocks and doesn't create spam blocks paying off band. It cannot be paid off band. It doesn't do the typical casino share payments. So the idea is that we don't really know. I'm not convinced that a mining pool doing or a miner doing filtering of spam will be necessarily less profitable. It's an argument, but even there is a philosophical argument by not pimping. I don't remember. That's probably it's a Bitcoiner that's saying this every time. By not pimping out my wife, I'm losing profit comparably to other friends that do. That's true. That's objective. Still, sometimes in life there is a reason to be relatively less profitable, because sometimes you don't want to do something which is profitable because it's wrong or bad or has other consequences that you don't want. So profit is a great proxy measure. Profit is a great number to tell you that to test if what you are doing is sustainable. But profit is not. This is like a caricature of capitalism to depict capitalists as somebody that are only maximizing short-term margins. That's not the way people works. People, it's not like you are a great astrophysicist, and then you realize that opening a pizzeria would be slightly more profitable, and so you just switch to pizzeria. That's not it. You are sticky because you have objectives, goals, passions, preferences, priorities, your morals. There are other things in play, even in Bitcoin. The fact that mining is very competitive and very fast and very low margins makes the competition a little bit more harsh, but it doesn't mean that the competition is only on the short-term margin. There are other factors in play. If I do have some few ASICs, I will willingly and forever prefer to point them to a pool which is better for Bitcoin, making less money. That's part of my personal trade-off assessment. And I'm not the only one. I may be in a minority. So there is this idea of the mining node. There is another. Then I close because I'm talking too much. But sugars during the Christmas party, so too much sugar, and I'm go on too much. But the consensus change. There is one idea that maybe we don't want to price out. We don't want to filter spam out of consensus, because that would be likely stupid, because it's a dynamic problem that we cannot change in the future. But maybe a proposal would be, it would never pass, but I would like it. It would be to remove the witness discount that was introduced with SegWit. Why? Because the witness discount says that you can get up to 4 megabytes in theory if of SegWit of witness data. No real transaction can get to that point. You will never have a non-spam block of 4 megabytes. That's impossible, because every Bitcoin transaction will have some not witness data. By definition, you need the outputs. So the only kind of transaction that can actually harvest the full SegWit discount is only spam. There is no way a real transaction could harvest that bonus. So the SegWit discount is basically an incentive for spam. And there is an argument that it could be removed by consensus. It will not delete spam. Some of the current spam is not even in the witness. They are so bold right now that they're also spamming the non-witness. They're ignoring the discount. So the spam attack right now is so bold that it's also ignoring the discount. But at least eliminating a discount that proved very attractive to spam may be part of the discussion.
Yeah, so it all boils down to time preference, doesn't it? Like the time preference of the miners. So if they intend to sell the Bitcoins instantly when they've mined them, then of course they're going to mine the ones that pay the most. But if they intend to hodl the Bitcoin and use the Bitcoin at some point later on in the future, then the incentive is to not include the spam, because you want the functionality of Bitcoin to be optimized in the long run.
Exactly. Right? Indeed, many things that are depicted as a conflict between profit and morals are just a conflict between profits now and more profits in the future. Most of the moral behavior is just low time preference behavior. It's just, I'm reducing my gain right now because I want to make it sustainable in the future by not hurting other people and other kind of things. So you're right. One of the optimistic lines of thinking is that miners are always have, by definition, some low time preference, in the sense that even if they sell all the Bitcoin, they have the ASICs that are not very liquid. And if Bitcoin goes down, the ASICs are just bricks. So there's some vested interest in Bitcoin. This is a weak argument, though, if you think about really sophisticated attacks, because first of all, the government, the central bank, can pay you more than your ASICs to damage Bitcoin. And so you just maximize your profit by breaking Bitcoin. And now you break your ASICs, but whatever, your loot was more. Second, you can use financial instruments to compensate. So you attack Bitcoin, you short Bitcoin. Now your ASICs are died, but now you make money with the short. So it's not bulletproof. It is a good thing that you have a vested interest in ASICs. It's a good thing of ASICs, but it's not bulletproof. It's not that no miners will ever do it.
Oh, this has been so great. There's a couple of other things I want to go into before we wrap this thing up. So when you talk about these points and that you're stuck on number 2, which basically I could boil that point down to you trying to make Bitcoiners less retarded. It's like which ties in nicely to your education effort that is coming. You want to completely rug everyone and centralize Bitcoin education. That's the plan, right? So can you tell us a bit more about that? I would love to be a part of that in some sense. Like, we had this idea a couple of years back of we will do the praxeology course some other way, but the plan is still to make the praxeology book I wrote last year into a course of some kind. And the idea back then was to have this praxeology course as a part of a master's degree in self-sovereignty, which I still think is a fantastic idea. Like that you get this, it's the only education you need, really, and then you can fuck off and do whatever you want. Like it's the perfect actual education in my mind. So anything we can do there, like enough about that. Like, tell us about the education effort. What is that?
So education effort is something that I was already trying to do, but alone. And my fixation since many years is to take people that are doing the same thing and centralize them in a single point of failure. Because, but jokes apart, I think that decentralization is always anti-fragile, but very inefficient, with a lot of redundancies, a lot of waste. Centralization is very efficient until it's not, because it dies and it fails. But if we do open source efforts that produce something that people can reuse, then we eliminate the single point of failure, or we mitigate it, because now I will centralize all the organization of education efforts by many entities that are doing everything yet again. Now we create one single entity that will do all that. It will be more efficient. It will cut redundancies. It will rationalize resources. And when it fails, because eventually we will become we will get corrupted or tired or lazy or complacent. Now we produce a body of open source knowledge that everybody else can reuse, not just the content, but even the platform. So what is the mission? To create a single internet platform called Plan B Network that will put together all the most relevant educational resources. The initiative is taking over the Plan B Summer School that I was part of in Lugano, and the Cubo Plus program in El Salvador, and the Summer of Bitcoin program for developers by ADI, and a few other things, including especially the Sovereign University, which is very close to what you were discussing. Roxy is a French guy that was creating a Sovereign University. So I merged all these initiatives together with my personal BHB network education initiative that I was already running in one single entity. Now we are running a little bit late because you see, if you don't have resources to do stuff, then you just do that in your free time. But if you do have relevant resources, now you have to organize the resources in a way that nobody will fight. And so now we are still creating. So we created a non-profit foundation in Switzerland. Now we create a for-profit company that will manage the site, that will receive a mandate. And now we are creating the team. So the website is there. If you go to planb.network, there is already the website, but it's right now mostly free education, which is cool, which is the objective. But we also want to do paid education. So in this website, hopefully in 1 month or 2 months top, you will find dates in which you can subscribe to a paid course and pay money to do a course of praxeology with Knut, or we can do a course of something with somebody. So the idea is to intermediate good Bitcoin teachers. So you don't have to do your own registration. You don't have to search. Basically, it's a typical network deal. You don't have to find your demand. We aggregate the demand. And when the demand is there, they don't have to go around searching for the supply. We aggregate and select and curate a good ontology of supply. So that's it. It's a very simple concept. It's just a network concept on education. There's also another side to the story, which is separated, which is a network of physical places. Because one of the things I learned over the years is that online is cool. Like we can do this. We could not do this without without these technical means. But when you want to create a good educational effort, you need some kind of physical coexistence of people. The bandwidth that we have when we are in the same room is never the same, or maybe we will be eventually, but right now it's not. So Plan B Network will also be a network of physical buildings where you can actually have a subscription, and then you go to the office in Madeira, to the office in Lugano, to the office in El Salvador. So this is not a new idea either. You remember the old idea of Bitcoin embassies. This is the same thing. We tried it over and over again. We tried again to do a network of physical places, so you can have one single membership to go to stay in a Bitcoin Airbnb in Tokyo, or to work in an office in Madeira, or to learn in a classroom in Lugano, or to put your developer in a talent pool in San Salvador. So this is the idea. It's two things: open source education and physical places networked together. That's the initiative.
Yeah, because it's very needed. Like I watched 2 or 3 pods yesterday. I had a lot of spare time yesterday. So my wife and daughter went to Sweden, so I'm here with my son only, and that means I have more time on my hands. So I managed to listen to 3 pods yesterday, and 2 of them one was Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris. They did something new, and the other was Jordan Peterson and Michael Malice. And what's so striking to me is these obvious holes in their. All 3 of these people have holes in their knowledge, because, like, with the conversation with Jordan and Sam, they're missing. They're like circling around praxeology and Misesian ideas, but they never get to them because it's like they never read Mises. So and the other thing with Michael Malice, the thing was like, well, you're talking about Bitcoin all the time here, but you're not saying it because you're not aware of it. And like Jordan should be aware at this point, and Michael as well. But still, there's a lot of people in this what used to be called the intellectual dark web that seem to have these obvious holes in their knowledge about what's actually available today and what tools are there and what. So is there a question here? Like, how do we as Bitcoiners reach these people and make like Bitcoin more in the awareness, like make mainstream be more aware of what this thing actually is? Nothing.
One of the possible tricks could be this. It's not a perfect solution, but it could be a mitigation again, which is, as you said, we want Plan B network will not be Bitcoin only. Not in the sense that it will be shitcoins, but in the sense that it starts with the Plan B for money, which is Bitcoin. Then the idea is to expand to other Plan B. So, right, just like Bitcoin is the new Plan B, sovereign, decentralized alternative to central banking, then we can do Plan B for energy and discuss about off-the-grid solutions. We can do Plan B for communication and discuss Nostra, Hole Punch, and peer-to-peer mesh networks. Where you can do Plan B for, and eventually the idea is to have Plan B for medicine with bro science and stuff like that. So we can expand. So if we expand, we can get other people that are part of what was called the intellectual dark web, which is basically the Plan B for global culture. And we can have part of those people involved. The only thing is that I think it will not be happen soon, because otherwise the impression will be of lack of focus. So if you enter Plan B network now, and there are 3 good courses about Bitcoin and 1 psychology with Jordan Peterson, or that's a little bit like the sense of, I don't like it. I prefer that we create something incredible about Bitcoin. Then we tackle the things that are obviously directly connected, like praxeology, Austrian economics, cybersecurity, game theory. So the parts that are very, very strictly connected. And then after my plan B is that after maybe 1 year of this, we can do something which is really unrelated. We can do stuff which is still a Plan B, but is not Bitcoin contiguous in a significant way. Just the philosophy of sovereign alternative to the mainstream is the only unifying picture. So Plan B will be extended to that. The problem is that I want to start focused on Bitcoin, and only when we are perfect in Bitcoin, we start to branch out.
Yeah, sounds like a good starting point. Luke, do you have a question for Giacomo? We haven't let you in yet.
All good. You know what, Giacomo, I'm not. We basically asked you 1 question, and then you talked for beyond the hour we were going to do with you. So I'm not going to hold you any longer here. This has been fantastic. Can't think of a better person to have on to talk about this whole Ordinals thing. The explanation was fantastic. So I'll just ask, any final thoughts, anything you'd like to leave with us for this session?
I like how you said in a very kind way that you are afraid of asking me 1 question, because the last time you did is I spent 1 hour and a half.
Well, what you're doing, Giacomo, is you're spamming the Freedom Footprint show, aren't you?
right.
And Luke is just censoring you in a polite way here.
No, I don't. I had Plan B to shield, but I already did. So let's. I would say an appeal to everybody would be think more. And let's before we fix the consensus that maybe we will never fix, and before we fix the mempool filters, then maybe we will fix or not. We have to fix the bug at the social layer of people being retarded. So, or at least mitigate that. So let's patch our retardedness together by studying and thinking and applying clear thinking about words and meanings and stuff. This is my appeal to everybody. If you are a miner or a hasher, if you have ASICs, my appeal would be, do whatever you want. Of course, that's the point that you can, but you can also point your ASICs to Ocean.xyz. And while there, you will have 3 templates because the whole point of Ocean in the long term is to make miners build their own templates, including bad templates that people in Ocean don't like, because still it's better if people can decentralize bad choices instead of centralizing bad choices. So you will find 3 templates. One template will be the template that we really like with a lot of spam filtering, so they can include a lot of financial transactions. And the other tools are basically Bitcoin Core with a patch, which limits the spam a little bit, and Bitcoin Core as is, which only limits the spam in the traditional sense, but not the new spam. I personally, I was in minority within the company. I suggested a new option, which is the crazy no filter version. So if you really want to test the Todd Carmen idea, just go there without any kind of spam and just create shitty blocks. We advise against, but you can. But eventually people will be able to do that with Stratum V2 anyway. So, but anyway, if you are a hasher, consider that. I think it's good for Bitcoin. You can even spam the network using Ocean. At least you're helping other people to include spam-free blocks if you want. If you are not a miner or a normal pleb, but you are an educator and you want to sell courses and you don't feel like organizing alone, reach out, me or Roxy with Plan B, and we will get you set up in the platform as soon as possible. And if you are an owner of a Bitcoin dedicated building somewhere around the world, like an office or a house or a hacker space or anything, reach out. We may put you in the network.
Excellent. Just a point about the back to Ocean here. So I think Ocean has around 1% of the hash rate at the moment, right?
Oh no, you wish no. It's 0.1.
No, it's more even. It's not even 1%.
Not even. Yeah. No, not even close.
Not even close. So, but do you think that Ocean will the existence of Ocean will put pressure on the other mining pools to be more transparent?
Already did. After transparency was a point of Eligius until 2017. It was the only one. Eligius disappeared in 2017. Now, when it came, and there was no transparency for 6 years. Once Eligius came back, there was another pool immediately doing the transparent, pre-existent template view for the user. So you mine or something that you know beforehand instead of after. That what happened like 2 days after Ocean already. This is a very small mining pool, even smaller than Ocean, but it's already working that way. And all this debate, even if it was a lot of drama, it created a lot of thinking about off-band payments. Like some people were mining with Luxor, not even thinking they were mining with Luxor. Now there's this block of 4 megabytes where the spammers pay Luxor directly. They were not even thinking, how do we gain from this? How is possible that we gain from this? How they are redistributing this payment? And nobody was thinking about this stuff. Now, or even just consider like all the drama that was about Ocean was because the Ocean template was public. So people were able to look at the template and say, oh, there are few restrictions here. So censorship, debate, let's discuss. But that was not possible before with all the other legacy pool, because even if they were excluding transaction, because core is excluding transactions, or for other reasons, including F2 pool doing the OFAC list and stuff like that, nobody was able to even discuss that because it was always exposed. So that effect is already happening. And frankly speaking, I'm a very small investor of Ocean. So if Ocean doesn't make money, I will lose some money. I'm super happy to donate some money just to create this effect. So even if Ocean will not be able to reach a great share of the hash rate, but will force other people to do this in the discussion, that's a win for Bitcoin. So it's a win for me. So it's money well spent.
Fantastic. Yeah. Final point. Do you know that I have I've had for years now 2 rules for my kids. Like, this is how I how I raise kids, and I've been having the 2 same rules for like 5 years now, or even more. Like, well, since they were 3 or something. And it's very simple. The first rule is don't be retarded. And then the second rule is sort of baked into the first rule already, but the second rule is shut the fuck up. And if they follow these 2 rules, everything is fine. So they like, so whenever they do something I don't like, I tell them that you broke rule number 1 again. So like, and
It's a very flexible rule. I have to
and I
admit, it's a
think
very flexible rule.
this is in effect what you're doing to the Bitcoin community. Like, you're trying to force them to not, or force them. You're telling them not to break these 2 rules. My kids are gonna thank you one day. All right, Giacomo. Looking forward a lot to seeing you in person next time. Hopefully sometime soon, and we'll continue the discussions about retardedness over a steak or something. So
with pleasure.
Yeah, thanks
Happy New Year.
so much. Yeah, you too. And we hope to be spamming the Freedom Footprint show with more Giacomo whenever we can. So
Looking forward.
Always
Bye, guys.
welcome back. Bye.
Thanks again, Giacomo. This has been the Freedom Footprint Show. Thanks for listening.